listening to the Unleash Greatness podcast with your host, Jonathan Mitchell. The best in personal, emotional, spiritual, and business development.
Hello, everyone. It is me, myself, and I, Jonathan Mitchell with Unleash Greatness. Thank you again for coming on board, listening in. Today is story time. Once again, if you don't know, I love to share stories that I have found either on the internet or from friends of mine or from your submissions. If you can, go to the website, unleashg.com. I think it's on, click on contact or be on the show. There's this tab there that says, click here to submit your story. It goes to a Google form that you can fill out your information, your story about any struggles you've been through, what success you've had. I'd love to read those and kind of share those if you're okay being open with that. Today is sponsored by naturalmedicineMamas.com for help, products, and advice around natural alternative medicine for men, women, and children. Check them out. They have amazing things. I've taken their stuff as well. Very helpful when it comes to wanting something to help your health without side effects, which is awesome. Again, this is Unleash Greatness. Thank you so much for listening. So once again, if you guys have stories, I'd love to read any stories you guys are willing to share with me. Any stories around, your own successes, any failures that may have held you back, and all of a sudden you've had some success in relationships, in your self-expression, whether that's business or career or side hustle, your health, whether that's personal, emotional, or physical health, and wealth, which is spiritual or obviously financial. Love to hear any thoughts you guys have. Always want to read those and kind of share everyone's experiences. If you can, go to the contact section on unleashg.com and fill out the form. I would love to be able to share some information about you if you're okay to share. Today I went through and I found another good article on successful people who have failed. Again, I think it's good, especially from this last week. If you listen to Tuesday's show, I talked about how you want to make sure when you look at success that you always look at what happened that may have been a failure at the same time. So what I mean is, it's been said to follow the seeds of success. And in the MBA discussion we had around decision making, it's important to also look at what didn't work. And it's also, again, interesting to see the people who have been super successful that were called failures at one time and ridiculed and criticized and didn't let that hold them back from becoming successful. So I wanted to read about a couple of people that were mega successful and were told they wouldn't be successful at all. Because I think everyone, including myself, I've had many times with music or with even this podcast or a lot of different ways that people said I wouldn't be successful. So it's inspiring to hear other people have gone through this as well. I think anyone who's tried to do something great of any kind goes through this. So this is to help you know that you're not the only one. So first example from this article is just called, let's see here, let's make sure I find the right place. Top 9 successful people who have failed. So the first one we want to talk about is Elvis. Actually, I am a music fanatic. Love musicians, love music stories, and so I thought it'd be fitting to start with a music figure. So obviously he's known the king of rock and roll. He has amazing success. You can't go wrong with looking at his talent, his skill, and everything that he touched and did. He was very influential on changing a lot of the game. So I didn't know this, but for even Elvis, I'm going to read a part of this. It says, success came after failure. His first recordings went nowhere. After that, he tried to join a vocal quartet, and he was told that he couldn't sing. Right before he became popular, he was told, "You ain't going nowhere, son. You should go back to driving a truck." What would have been like? What would this world be like if Elvis would have listened to that and then gone back and driven a truck? There would have been no Elvis. Can you imagine a world where there's no Elvis Presley? Crazy. And I'm going to bring up why I bring that up here in a second. I talked about this last time, Michael Jordan. I'm going to read one of his quotes. You know how he was cut from his high school team. His own quote, he said, "I must have missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I lost almost 300 games. On 26 occasions, I've been entrusted to take the game-winning shot, and I missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Love that because, you think about Michael Jordan as the person, they always show highlights of how he was just incredible, how he can't miss a shot, played through the flu, took the Bulls to, 6-7 championships. Amazing guy. Super giving still, very involved. Like I have nothing but respect for Michael Jordan. Good guy. And still, he tracks all of his failures, and he didn't let that keep him from going forward and moving forward. I remember reading this other article about him, and this is not in this one, where it talked about how as he was going through his career, he would get ridiculed for different parts of his game. So like foul shots. At one time he was horrific with foul shots, and so he would work and work and work and work and work on his foul shots until he was like every single time, like 90% of the time he'd make a foul shot instead of like 30 or 40. Same thing with three-pointers. Like there was one time where he was ridiculed for his three-point ability. So he worked and worked and worked and worked on it, and he just hit it time after time after time. Same with his handling of the ball, the dribbling, like every part of his game, he worked on the parts of his game that he was being ridiculed on, which I think is very interesting, so that he could go back and say, I am a master of this. I am really good at this. He took the ridicule, and in this article I read about him, he said he used it as fuel to make himself better. Next one up, from more of an artist background, is Vincent van Gogh. I didn't know this, but 4 of his paintings have sold for more than $100 million, so obviously a success in that way. In his life, when he was alive, he was a failure. So I'm going to read this. It said, he slowly began to build a reputation when he was alive. He had a ton of critics. He burned and destroyed many of his paintings out of frustration and was known when he was alive to sell only one painting. He did not work to overcome his failure, and he killed himself. Soon after his death, his work began to garner intense critical and financial success. And then one of his own quotes was, what would life be like if we had no courage to attempt anything? So, I mean, that's kind of a sad story that he thought he was so much of a failure that he took his own life because his art wasn't even recognized in his own lifetime, which I hope, all of us have the experience where we can see that we are appreciated in our lifetime, but it might be that maybe we do something and we're not recognized till later. So that's an interesting story. Stephen King. My dad is a huge Stephen King fan. He loves his books. So I'm going to read you this thing real quick. King was working as a teacher in rural Maine, where he wrote his first novel, Carrie. King had small success selling short stories previously, but nothing that anyone could create a career on, so to speak. So King submitted Carrie 30 times. King was rejected 30 times before his 31st attempt. He threw his manuscript out. His wife rescued it from the round file and asked him to try one more time, and then he had success. 30 times. As an artist, I can't tell you, I've probably had something like that too with my music, but I've been rejected over and over and over and over again, and it gets discouraging. Like there's some point you're kind of like, how many times do I keep doing this? But obviously, like him, 31st time he had, I guess technically after his 31st time he threw it out, so it'd be his 32nd time is when he had success finally. Crazy. Fred Astaire. During his first big screen test, an RKO executive noted that Astaire can't sing, can't act, balding, can dance a little bit. Despite his initial rejection, Astaire persevered and ended up becoming one of the top actors, singers, and dancers of his generation. Known as one of the original triple threats, which, as you know, is an actor, singer, dancer, one of his quotes is, do it big, do it right, and do it with style. Crazy that Fred Astaire was told that he can't sing or act because he's amazing. Fred Astaire is super talented. Next up is Abraham Lincoln. So I'm a huge Lincoln fan. Love anything about American history. He's one of my guys that I'm a big fan of. I'm going to read one of these things here real quick. It says, if Lincoln quit when the going got tough, the world might be a very different place. As a young man, Lincoln entered military service in the Black Hawk War as a captain, yet he left as a private, meaning obviously he got demoted. Very little formal education. Lincoln taught himself and became a lawyer and congressman. His real rise to national prominence began to be viewed as a failure. 1858, Lincoln tried for a seat in the Illinois Senate, and this led to a series of hotly contested debates, the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Lincoln lost the Senate election, but really impressed a lot of the right-wing people, even with his loss. 2 years later, he ran for president and won. Thankfully, he did not let formal education, initial failure, or setbacks rattle him. It doesn't go into this, but his wife, if you read anything about him, his wife had some major mental problems and had breakdown after breakdown. I mean, Lincoln didn't just lose those ones. He ran several times and lost. I think when he ran for president was the only time that he ran for a political office and he won. I think there was like 10 or 15 times before that for Senate seats and congressmen. And other seats politically that he lost every time except for when he ran for president. And even then, he still had struggles with his wife. I mean, he is an incredible story of how strong he was. Next one, if you're a reader and you love this type of story, which is our own modern version, which is J.K. Rowling, perfect success can come to anyone at any time. So it says here she's doing a backstroke through a pool of Harry Potter money. But before she was a success, she was a divorced mother living on welfare, going to school and writing a novel in her spare time. Rowling said herself that she was the biggest failure I knew and credits a lot of her success to her failure. At a Harvard commencement speech, Rowling said this: "Failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and I began to direct all my energy to finishing the only work that mattered to me. Had I really succeeded at anything else, I might not have found the determination to succeed in one area where I truly belonged. I was set free because of my greatest fear had been realized, and I was still alive. I still had a daughter whom I adored. I had an old typewriter and a big idea, and so rock bottom became a solid foundation where I rebuilt my life." And again, if you read into her story, she talks about how she wrote the first edit of Harry Potter on napkins, on table napkins, because she didn't have enough paper to write a story. Craziness. And now she's like, one of the most successful authors of all time because of, again, Harry Potter, all the series, all the movies. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Love it. Last one is Einstein, which I know we kind of talked about last time. I'm going to review this again. As a child, Einstein had speech difficulties and was thought to be mentally handicapped. As a teen, he rebelled against his school's reliance on rote learning and failed. He tried into Zurich Polytechnic, but failed again, although he did good in math and physics, as you might expect. He buckled down, received requisite training, and applied to Zurich Polytechnic again, and this time was accepted. Years later, he was a PhD and a leading theorist, and after that, he had a Nobel Prize for physics and began to be recognized as a genius in our modern era. A genius at one time, when he was younger, was known to be mentally handicapped. I guess the reason why I want to share all these is because there might be something in your life that is important to you, you've tried over and over again, and that you haven't been able to be successful at for whatever reason. You've been rejected time and again. You've been told that you're not going to work, that your idea is not going to work, your business isn't going to work, and the failure keeps mounting up 31 times like Stephen King does, or whatever. Maybe it's 100 times. If something is important to you, if you feel called to do something, if you feel like that you're in a place where you're ready to do something new, build and rebuild your life on the bottom rock foundation of which you might be seeing yourself fall to. And even if you're not at rock bottom, like maybe your life's, okay, but you still have a dream or something you're working towards, don't let failure be the thing that holds you back from success. Don't become the Elvis of your particular industry or passion because you decided to go back to truck driving instead of trying one more time with whatever makes your soul sing. Be willing to try more, even if you fail. That's my last thoughts. This is Unleash Greatness. Thank you again. Tune in tomorrow for our last episode of this week. And we'll talk soon. Thank you so much.